Rain clawed at the ancient stones of the auction square, each drop slicing through the silence like a warning from the gods. The torches trembled in their brackets, smoke curling against the night, carrying the scent of iron, blood, and betrayal. It wasn't a market tonight. It was a spectacle. A punishment. A reminder of what happens when power refuses to kneel. Lyria pressed herself against the cold wall, her breath sharp and uneven. Her cloak, once white as moonlight, was now stained dark with mud and blood. Beneath it, her skin pulsed with a burn that no mortal wound could explain, silver, molten and alive, searing her veins from the inside out. Every heartbeat was agony. Every breath, a gamble. Chains rattled nearby. The sound turned her stomach. Wolves, strong men and women with eyes that glowed faintly in the dark, were dragged across the marble, their pride stripped, their spirits beaten into silence. Their howls, once the voice of the mountains, were now drowned beneath the jeering crowd. Above the platform, the auction master's voice boomed, oily and cruel. Pureblood warriors of the fallen packs. Bound, branded, and loyal to their new masters. Each word landed heavy, like a stone dropped into the pit of her soul. Lyria's fingers dug into the soaked earth. She should have run earlier, should have vanished into the forest when the first horn sounded. But her heart, damn her heart, had made her stay. She couldn't leave the wounded behind. She never could. Now she was the one being hunted. Behind her, boots pounded the cobblestone, the sound of soldiers cutting through the rain like thunder chasing lightning. She could hear her name on their lips, hissed, cursed, spit out like poison. The cursed healer. Find her. Don't let her touch the ground. Lyria pressed her trembling hand against her arm, feeling the slick warmth of blood seeping through her bandages. She had stitched her own wound in the dark, using nothing but trembling fingers and desperation. But the silver hadn't forgiven her. It pulsed under her skin, angry, restless, whispering of the power she'd tried to bury years ago. That power, the one she swore never to use again. The one that had cost her everything. She closed her eyes. The world tilted. The torches blurred. For a heartbeat, she could see their faces, the council who'd exiled her, the packmates who'd turned their backs, the child she couldn't save. Her failure lived in her like a ghost that never stopped whispering. The air shifted. A cold gust tore through the square, snuffing out a row of torches. Shadows stretched long and alive across the wet marble. Somewhere in the chaos, a wolf growled low, a warning, not for the crowd, but for her. Lyria's pulse quickened. She pushed herself up, clutching the edge of a fallen column for balance. Her knees trembled beneath her. She could feel the pull in her chest, the faint flicker of light beneath her skin, like a heartbeat made of flame. She looked down at her palm. The faintest glow bled through the cracks of her fingers. Silver. Wild. Forbidden. No, not here, not again. The power answered her fear with a hum that wasn't entirely gentle. It wanted out. It wanted to burn. To remind the world what it had done to her. She clenched her fist, pressing it against her heart, forcing the light back down. Her teeth caught her lower lip until she tasted copper. A flash of lightning tore through the sky, lighting up the auction square. For a moment, everything froze in perfect clarity, the prisoners bound in iron, the greedy eyes of the nobles beneath their gilded hoods, the soldiers scanning the shadows. And her. The outcast healer, crouched between ruin and revelation. A voice shouted in the distance. Closer now. Too close. Search the pillars. She can't have gone far. Lyria's chest heaved. Her heartbeat thundered against her ribs. She glanced toward the gate, the only exit left, but 3 guards stood there, their spears gleaming even through the rain. She could smell the silver on them. It burned in her throat just to breathe it in. She ducked lower, pulling her cloak tight around her face. The fabric clung to her, heavy and cold. She thought of the forest beyond the city walls, the scent of pine, the whisper of wolves, but it felt like a memory from another life. Now, all she could feel was the pain. and beneath it, the hunger. The flame calling her name. A sound cut through the storm, the clatter of metal, sharp and sudden. A chain snapping. Then a roar, deep and animal, that silenced the square in an instant. Lyria looked up. One of the captured wolves had broken free. His eyes burned gold, wild with fury. The guards swarmed him, shouting, striking, but he moved like wind and thunder, all muscle and vengeance. The crowd screamed. The torches fell. Chaos exploded. In that moment, Lyria ran. Her bare feet splashed through puddles as she darted between the marble pillars. Every step sent a jolt of fire through her leg, but she didn't stop. The square tilted around her, voices echoing like ghosts. Run. She stumbled over a fallen chain, crashing to her knees. The impact drove a cry from her throat. Her hand slipped into the mud, and when she pulled it up, the silver light had returned, brighter this time, pulsing through her veins like a heartbeat outside her body. She could hear the soldiers coming. Their boots. Their armor. Their hunger for her capture. She pressed her glowing palm to her wound, gasping. Not now, please. But the flame didn't listen. It never had. The ground beneath her hand hissed as steam rose from the wet stone. Her body trembled as the air thickened around her, alive with heat and memory. She remembered the first time it happened, how the flame had leapt from her like a scream, how it had turned flesh and bone to ash in seconds. She'd been 17. She'd been trying to save him. And she had failed. Now, years later, the same terror gripped her. The same power trembled, waiting for permission to destroy. The soldiers appeared between the pillars. One raised a crossbow. Another shouted, "Don't let her move." Her hand glowed brighter. Her eyes flooded silver. And then, she dropped it. She dropped the power. She fell back, clutching her arm to her chest, whispering through her tears, "Not here, not again." The flame flickered once more, then faded into her skin like it had never been. Only smoke remained, rising, curling, vanishing. For a heartbeat, everything was still. The soldiers scanned the shadows, confused by the sudden quiet. Rain softened their footsteps. The crowd murmured. Someone shouted about the escaped wolf. Someone else pointed toward the eastern gate. The chaos scattered their attention just long enough for Lyria to slip further into the ruins. She moved like a ghost, half crawling, half running, her breath catching in her throat. The air smelled of burning metal and wet stone. Every step she took echoed like thunder inside her chest. Lightning flashed again, and in its brief light, her reflection appeared in a broken mirror hanging from a crumbling wall, pale face, hollow eyes, blood on her cheek, and that faint, treacherous shimmer beneath her skin. She didn't recognize herself anymore. The healer who once saved kings was now a fugitive hiding in the ashes of their empire. She pressed her hand to the wall, steadying herself. The cold bit into her palm. The stone felt alive, humming with the energy of the storm. Somewhere behind her, a wolf howled, a sound both mournful and wild. It made her chest tighten, her breath hitch. For a moment, she wanted to answer it. But she didn't. She couldn't. She wasn't part of them anymore. The thunder rolled. The crowd screamed again. The world spun around her, heavy and relentless. Her body ached. Her spirit trembled. Her power whispered. And still, she moved. Because running was all she had left. Her cloak dragged behind her like a shadow too heavy to let go. The rain blurred her vision. She could feel her strength fading, the wound deepening. Each heartbeat came slower, each breath sharper. When she reached the edge of the square, she collapsed behind a crumbling pillar, the marble cool against her burning skin. Her hands shook uncontrollably. She pressed them together, trying to breathe, trying to forget the faces, the flames, the screams. Tears mingled with the rain as she whispered into the hollow of her palms, "Please, not again. Not like before." For a long moment, there was nothing but the sound of rain. Then, somewhere beyond the chaos, a shadow moved. She didn't see him yet. Didn't know his name. But something in the air changed, like the storm itself had taken a breath. The torches flickered. The ground hummed. And deep inside her chest, the silver flame stirred again, like it sensed him before she did. The night wasn't done with her. Not yet. If your heart is racing already, you belong here. Subscribe to Sophie's Romance Collections, where danger and desire are one breath apart. The crowd's roar rolled like thunder through the soaked square, a wall of noise that made the air itself vibrate. Torches flared in the rain, throwing wild light across the slick marble and the trembling faces of those who watched. The storm hadn't broken, it had simply paused, as though the sky itself was holding its breath. Then, through the veil of rain and chaos, a figure emerged. He didn't rush. He didn't need to. Every step he took was slow, deliberate, heavy with authority. His cloak was made of black wolf hide, soaked and gleaming, the silver clasp at his throat shaped like a crescent moon. The firelight caught his eyes, deep amber, almost gold, and they burned with something that wasn't just power. It was command. It was control. And under that control, something feral waited, patient but hungry. The soldier stiffened. The auction master's words stumbled into silence. Even the wind seemed to bend around him. Cassian Draven, the Alpha King of the Northern Packs. The Wolf Emperor. The man whose voice alone could send armies to their knees. He didn't look at the chained wolves. He didn't glance at the nobles who bowed in hurried fear. His gaze moved like a blade cutting through fog, searching, tasting the air until it stopped, on her. Lyria. The noise of the square fell away. The storm dulled. The torches seemed to pull their light toward her face. He knew that scent. Not just of rain and blood, but of something wild beneath it. The faint sweetness of crushed herbs, the sharp bite of silver flame. He had smelled it once before, years ago, on a battlefield lit by fire and screams. The scent of a healer who refused to kneel. His jaw tightened. She was supposed to be gone. Dead, perhaps. Forgotten by history, erased by the council's decree. But here she was, cornered like a hunted animal, trembling beneath a pillar, her blood still warm in the rain. For a long heartbeat, neither moved. The distance between them stretched and coiled, a line drawn by fate itself. And then, movement. A glint of metal in the corner of his eye. A blade, thrown through the storm. It spun through the rain toward her throat. Time fractured. Cassian's hand shot out before thought could catch up. The blade never reached her. His fingers closed around it midair, the edge biting into his palm, blood mingling instantly with rain. The sound, metal meeting flesh, was drowned by gasps rippling through the crowd. Lyria's head snapped up, eyes wide, lips parting but no words forming. Cassian didn't flinch. He turned the blade over once in his hand, eyes locked on the guard who'd thrown it. Then, with a flick of his wrist, he sent it spinning into the mud at the man's feet. The Alpha's voice cut through the storm, low, rough, dangerous. "She's under my protection." No one moved. Not the guards, not the crowd, not even the chained wolves. The rain fell softer now, as though listening. Lyria's heart slammed against her ribs. The sight of him, towering, dark, alive with the kind of power that could silence a city, stole her breath and replaced it with something she couldn't name. Fear. Anger. Maybe both. She forced herself to stand, her wounded leg trembling beneath her. Every instinct screamed at her to run, but his gaze held her still. It wasn't human. It wasn't gentle. It was the gaze of a predator who'd finally found what he'd been tracking. And in that gaze, she felt seen. Exposed. "The healer who refused to bow," he said quietly, as though reminding himself it was real. His words landed like a strike. She flinched, not because of the tone, but because of what lay beneath it. Recognition. Memory. He took a slow step forward, boots sinking slightly into the wet marble. The sound echoed. The guards, uncertain, looked between each other, waiting for orders that never came. "Your Majesty," one stammered. "She's a fugitive. She's marked." Cassian's glare silenced him. "She's mine." The word cut through her like a brand. She drew in a shaky breath, her voice barely a whisper. "Don't." He tilted his head slightly, studying her like a puzzle that refused to fit. "Don't what?" "Don't save me," she said, her voice hoarse but steady. "You'll regret it." Rain slid down her face, washing the dirt from her skin, revealing the faint glow of silver beneath her collarbone. The mark she couldn't hide, the one that condemned her wherever she went. Cassian's eyes flicked to it, and for the first time, something inside him shifted. His expression, once carved from iron, softened, if only for a breath. He had seen that light before. He'd watched it burn through the wounded and the dying, watched it heal, watched it destroy. It was beautiful and terrible in equal measure. He stepped closer. The scent of wet fur and smoke followed him. His voice dropped lower, almost a growl. "You think I don't know regret?" Lyria's throat tightened. "You don't know mine." The torches sputtered as thunder rolled overhead. Around them, whispers grew. Nobles murmured about blasphemy, about curses, about the Alpha King protecting a monster. Guards shifted nervously, torn between fear and obedience. But Cassian didn't care. His attention never left her. She stood there, barefoot, drenched, trembling but unbroken. And he saw something in her that shouldn't have been possible, strength in ruin, defiance in despair. For a long, dangerous heartbeat, the air between them pulsed. The world seemed smaller. The storm louder. Every drop of rain a drumbeat between their hearts. Then the moment broke. A soldier lunged from the side, swinging a chain meant for her neck. Cassian moved before she could even react, his hand snapping out, catching the chain mid-swing, yanking it hard enough to drag the man forward. The Alpha's other hand caught him by the throat. The sound of cracking armor and choked air filled the silence. Cassian's voice was quiet, but lethal. "Touch her again, and you'll never shift again." He threw the man aside. The soldier hit the ground hard, gasping. Lyria stepped back, eyes wide, breath shallow. She had seen violence before. But not like this, not precise, not protective, not from someone whose every movement carried purpose instead of rage. He turned to her again, chest rising and falling. "You're bleeding," he said. She swallowed. "I've been worse." He studied her, really studied her. The way her hand trembled slightly where she pressed it against her wound. The faint shimmer of power she was trying to suppress. The exhaustion in her eyes that spoke of too many nights running and too few reasons to stop. And for the first time in a very long time, Cassian felt something shift in him that wasn't command, or duty, or vengeance. It was recognition. A ghost of something he'd buried long ago. "You shouldn't be here," he said finally. She almost laughed, the sound brittle. "You think I don't know that?" His lips twitched, almost a smile, but not quite. "Then why are you?" Her jaw tightened. "Because running doesn't erase what I've done." For a moment, the rain filled the space between them, falling harder now, pattering against the broken marble and the distant cages. Cassian took one slow step closer, his cloak brushing her arm. She tensed. The air between them charged, heat blooming under her skin despite the cold. He could hear her heartbeat now, fast and uneven. It mirrored his own. "You're not what they say," he said, voice low. Her eyes lifted to his, silver flickering in the reflection of his gold. "And you don't know what I am." He didn't look away. "Maybe not. But I know what I see." The sound of soldiers shouting somewhere beyond the square broke the fragile stillness. More were coming, reinforcements, by the sound of it. Cassian turned his head slightly, listening. His shoulders straightened. Authority returned to his posture like armor sliding into place. "Stay behind me," he said. She frowned. "I can handle myself." "I don't doubt it," he replied. But tonight isn't about pride. Lyria hesitated. Every instinct in her screamed not to trust him. The last time she trusted power, it had destroyed everything she loved. But the way he stood there, blood dripping from his hand, rain streaking down his face, unwavering despite the chaos, made something inside her chest loosen, just a little. She nodded once. Cassian turned to face the advancing guards. His voice carried across the square, calm but deadly. Anyone who takes another step dies where he stands. No one moved. He drew the sword from his belt. It wasn't silver, but something older, forged in the ancient style of the wolf clans, dark metal, runes faintly glowing along its edge. The sight of it made the guards falter. They had heard the stories of what that blade could do. Cassian raised it slightly. This woman is under my protection by decree of the crown. Any man who disobeys that decree defies the Alpha himself. The auction master stumbled forward, voice trembling. Your Majesty, she's dangerous. She carries the cursed flame. Enough, Cassian growled, and the man fell silent instantly. Lyria's heart twisted. He was risking everything, for her. A king defending an exile. It made no sense. When the guards finally backed away, Cassian lowered his sword but didn't sheath it. His eyes found hers again, and for a long, quiet moment, it was just them, the rain, the breath between them, the pull that neither could name but both could feel. He stepped closer, close enough that the warmth of him cut through the cold. His voice dropped, low enough that only she could hear. You should come with me. Her breath caught. To your palace? To safety. She almost smiled. Safety doesn't exist for people like me. He looked at her for a long while, then said softly, maybe not. But tonight, it does. The torches flickered again, as if the storm had hurt him. The rain eased, turning to mist that clung to their skin. For the first time since the night began, the chaos in the square began to fade. Still, Lyria didn't move. Her body ached, her power trembled beneath her skin, and yet something in her refused to surrender, to him, to fate, to anything. Why? She asked quietly. Why me? Cassian's eyes softened, though his voice remained steady. Because I've been hunting the truth, he said. And somehow, I think it's been running from me in your skin. For a heartbeat, she forgot the pain, the fear, the storm. The space between them narrowed, the air charged with something unspoken, something that burned but didn't destroy. She wanted to believe him. Gods, she wanted to. But belief was a luxury she couldn't afford. She took a slow step back, her voice breaking just slightly. Don't save me. You'll regret it. Cassian's gaze didn't waver. That's the thing about regret, he said. You only feel it when you walk away. The storm cracked open again above them, thunder rolling like the growl of an ancient beast. And for the first time, the Alpha King and the cursed healer stood side by side, two exiles of fate, bound by something neither yet understood, but both could feel burning under their skin. The night would remember them. And so would every heart that dared to listen. Rain drummed endlessly against the roof of the old carriage house. The night carried the scent of damp earth and rusting chains, a cruel reminder of where she had been only hours ago. Lyria sat hunched beside the dying fire, her cloak heavy with blood and rain. The storm still whispered outside, clawing at the broken shutters as though demanding entry. Each crack of thunder sent a tremor through her bones, not from fear, but memory. Her hands would not stop shaking. The burns along her wrists pulsed with a dull, merciless ache. Silver wounds never healed easily, not even for her. Cassian Draven stood a few feet away, silent, the firelight casting jagged shadows across his face. The Alpha King's presence filled the room, commanding, suffocating, impossible to ignore. His wet cloak dripped onto the stone floor, the scent of wolf musk and iron mixing with the bitter smoke. Every movement he made seemed deliberate, as if the air itself bent to his will. Lyria did not look at him. She didn't want to see the man who had stopped the auction, the man who'd caught the blade meant to end her. Her chest still heaved from running, and the world around her swayed. but the silence between them pressed heavier than the storm outside. Cassian's voice broke it, low and raw. You shouldn't be alive. Her lips twisted into something between a smile and a grimace. That makes two of us. He stepped closer, boots scraping against stone. You're her. The silver flame. The name burned through her like acid. She didn't answer. The flames in the hearth flickered, mirroring the pulse in her palm. He studied her, his golden eyes sharp. You hide it well. But I can smell the power on you. It's the same scent that clings to the dead after a soul is ripped from the body. Her head snapped up. You don't know what you're talking about. He crouched before her, the fire painting his features in molten gold. Then tell me what I should know. Lyria's breath faltered. The words clawed at her throat, aching to be spoken, but she had buried them for years beneath layers of guilt and silence. Still, his gaze wouldn't let her look away. She exhaled shakily. I was the royal healer once. They called me the miracle of the Moon Legion. My touch could close wounds that no blade could reopen. Her eyes glazed, drifting back into memory. There were so many of them, warriors torn apart by claws, fire, arrows. I healed them all. I thought I was chosen. That the silver flame was a gift from the Moon Mother herself. Her hand trembled as she lifted it toward the firelight, watching faint veins of silver shimmer beneath her skin. But gifts from the gods always come with a curse. Cassian's jaw tightened. What curse? Her voice dropped to a whisper. The more I healed, the more it took from me. Not my strength. Not my life. Souls, Cassian. Every wound I closed. I stole a piece of someone's spirit. I didn't know. Not until the night I killed him. The storm outside wailed, as though mourning with her. Lyria swallowed hard. He was only a boy. 15. The Duke's son. They brought him to me after a raid. He was bleeding out, calling for his mother. I laid my hand on his chest, begging the flame to spare him. It did. But when I opened my eyes, he wasn't breathing. He wasn't anything. His body was whole, but his soul, gone. Burned away by me. Cassian said nothing. The fire cracked once, sparks scattering like ghosts between them. They called me a monster. The council stripped my title, cast me out. I begged them to understand, but they wanted blood. So I ran. Her breath trembled. I swore I'd never use it again. Never touch another life with these hands. For a moment, Cassian seemed carved from stone. Then his expression softened, just barely. You saved more lives than anyone in that kingdom. They feared what they couldn't control. She met his eyes. And what about you? Do you fear me too? His stare didn't waver. I don't have the luxury of fear. Lyria let out a bitter laugh. No. You just have power. Enough to make men kneel and monsters obey. Cassian turned away, his shoulders tensing beneath his cloak. Power doesn't stop nightmares, Lyria. It only gives them a face. The wind howled again, louder this time, shaking the old walls. Something shifted in the way he said her name, like it wasn't just recognition, but something older, deeper. She studied him quietly. You've seen death too, haven't you? He didn't answer at first. His gaze was distant, lost somewhere far beyond the flames. I buried more than I can count. My pack. My brother. My queen. His voice roughened. When the rebellion came, I thought I could protect them. I led them into the mountain strongholds. But the witch's fire found us there. Burned everything. Everyone. The silence that followed was heavy, unbroken except by the hiss of rain on the roof. Lyria's throat ached. I'm sorry. He looked at her sharply. Don't be. Sorry doesn't rebuild the dead. She didn't flinch. Then why are you here, Cassian? What do you want with me? He met her gaze, and the air between them tightened like a drawn bowstring. Because the prophecy speaks of you. The flame bearer. The healer who burns. It says you can end the curse that binds my bloodline, or destroy us all. Her pulse skipped. I don't believe in prophecies. Belief doesn't matter, he said quietly. It's already written. Lyria shook her head. You don't understand. The flame doesn't heal anymore. It consumes. If I touch it again? Cassian's voice cut through her protest. Then you'll have to learn control. Because whether you want it or not, your power is waking. Her eyes flicked to her hand. The faint glow beneath her skin had grown brighter, pulsing with every heartbeat. She clenched her fist, fighting it down, trembling with effort. It's not waking, it's breaking loose. He stepped closer, the scent of him, smoke, rain, wolf, curling around her. Then I'll help you hold it. Lyria stared at him, disbelief flickering in her chest. Why would you risk it? You saw what I did out there. You saw what I am. His expression was unreadable, but his voice carried a quiet intensity. Because I've spent my life killing monsters. And I know one thing, real monsters don't regret what they've done. The words hit her like a blade to the chest. Her throat tightened, tears stinging behind her eyes, but she forced them down. She'd spent too long running, too long hiding behind walls of guilt and silence. I can't save you, she whispered. Cassian's gaze softened, his voice barely audible. Maybe not. But maybe you can save yourself. The storm outside began to ease, the thunder fading into distant murmurs. The fire burned lower, painting their faces in muted amber. The tension between them hummed, fragile, dangerous, undeniable. Lyria broke the silence. They'll come for me. The council. The soldiers. They'll never let me live. Then they'll have to get through me first. His words were simple, but they rooted deep inside her. No one had ever said that to her, not since before the exile, before everything she loved turned to ash. She turned her gaze toward the window. The rain had slowed to a gentle drizzle. Beyond the horizon, faint light shimmered, a distant promise of dawn. She whispered, "You don't even know me." Cassian's reply was quiet, steady. "I know enough. You ran, but you didn't stop healing. You were hunted, but you still chose mercy. That tells me everything I need to know." The fire crackled softly. She didn't answer, but her chest ached with something dangerous, hope. The one emotion she'd sworn never to feel again. Outside, the wind shifted, carrying the scent of pine and wet earth. Cassian turned toward the door, his body tense. "They'll be tracking your blood. We need to move." Lyria rose slowly, her legs trembling beneath her. The pain in her arm flared, but she ignored it. As she reached for her cloak, Cassian stepped closer, his hand brushing hers for the briefest second. The contact sent a shiver through her, not fear, but something far deeper, rawer. For the first time in years, she didn't pull away. As they stepped out into the night, the storm clouds began to part, revealing a sliver of moonlight breaking through. It caught on the edge of her silver-scorched skin, glowing faintly against the darkness. Cassian glanced at her, his eyes reflecting that same light. "The world will hunt you for what you are," he said quietly. "But I think it's going to kneel before what you'll become." Lyria didn't answer. She just kept walking beside him, the echo of his words trailing her like a heartbeat. And somewhere deep within her chest, beneath the guilt, beneath the scars, the silver flame flickered once, softly, dangerously, alive. The tunnels beneath the Colosseum breathed like a living thing. Each corridor pulsed with the slow rhythm of dripping water and the ghostly hum of ancient power, buried beneath centuries of blood and worship. Cassian walked ahead, torchlight catching on the jagged stone as the flames hissed in protest. Lyria followed, her breath shallow, her cloak heavy with damp. The air was colder here, so cold it bit through her skin and settled into her bones. The silence felt sacred. Or cursed. Every few steps, the walls changed. Smooth marble gave way to black rock veined with silver runes, symbols that shimmered faintly as she passed. They weren't written in any language she knew, yet the marks tugged at something deep within her, as though whispering secrets her soul had once understood. She stopped, running her fingers across one of the carvings. The lines burned faintly beneath her touch, not with pain, but recognition. Cassian turned when he noticed she'd fallen behind. "Don't touch them too long," he warned quietly. "These runes remember. They awaken what's buried." Lyria's voice trembled. "Then they know me." His eyes softened, though his expression stayed guarded. "That's what I'm afraid of." They kept moving, the path spiraling downward into the earth. The air thickened with the scent of ash and old incense. Somewhere far above, thunder rolled, muffled now, distant, like a memory of the storm. When they reached the end of the tunnel, the walls opened into a vast chamber. It was unlike anything Lyria had ever seen. The ceiling soared high, lost in darkness, and beneath it lay a massive circular dais carved from moonstone. Surrounding it were statues, colossal figures of half-wolves, half-gods, their eyes inlaid with obsidian. They stood in a perfect circle, their claws pressed to the ground as if guarding what lay at the center. "The altar of Vargon." Cassian's voice echoed through the hollow air. "This is where the first Alpha was born. Where the curse began." The firelight danced over the ancient carvings that lined the floor, depictions of battles, rituals, and something else. A story told in fragments. Wolves kneeling before a figure wrapped in silver flame. A shadowed king crowned in darkness. And above them, the broken moon, split by light and shadow, bleeding into the sea. Lyria's throat tightened as she approached the mural nearest the altar. This one, she traced the figure with trembling fingers, a woman cloaked in silver fire, her face turned upward, chains winding around her wrists. Beside her stood a man cloaked in shadow, his hand gripping the same chain, his expression hidden. "She bears the mark." Cassian stepped beside her, the torchlight flickering against the curve of her cheek. "The same as yours." She swallowed hard, pulling her cloak tighter around her. "It can't be." "It's been prophesied since before the First War," Cassian said quietly. "The child of the flame. The one who would mend the broken moon or burn the Alpha bloodline to ash. The one who carries both life and ruin." Lyria shook her head. "Prophecies are stories to keep the fearful quiet. They make monsters sound like destiny." His gaze didn't waver. "And yet, every mark, every whisper leads here, to you." The words echoed in her chest like a heartbeat she couldn't silence. She stepped closer to the mural. Her reflection shimmered faintly on the smooth stone, overlapping with the figure of the silver flame. The resemblance was undeniable. The curve of her shoulders. The faint scar beneath the eye. Even the chain that looped around the woman's wrist seemed to align with the silver burn that marked her own. Her voice cracked. "I'm not meant to save anyone." Cassian's tone hardened. "You were never meant to hide." The air between them thickened, heavy with something unsaid. Lyria turned away, gripping her cloak until her knuckles whitened. "You don't understand what it means. If I'm her, if that prophecy is real, it means I destroy everything I touch. I heal, and it kills. I love, and it burns." Cassian's jaw tightened, the muscles in his throat shifting as he spoke. "Maybe that's the curse talking. Or maybe it's what they wanted you to believe so you'd never find out what you are." She spun on him, her eyes blazing. "You think I haven't tried? I spent years trying to bury this power, to silence it. Every time I use it, someone dies. Every time I touch it, something breaks. And yet you're still here," Cassian said quietly. "The flame hasn't killed you. It's chosen you." She stared at him, her chest rising and falling. "You sound like one of them. The priests. The seers. They said the same thing before they chained me." Cassian took a slow step closer. His voice dropped lower, rougher. "I don't care what they said. I've read the old prophecies, Lyria. I know the truth of this place. The flame-bearer was never meant to destroy the world. She was meant to unmake what was broken. To burn away the curse that bound the first Alpha's soul. Lyria's pulse quickened. And if the curse isn't ready to die? Cassian's gaze darkened. Then we fight it. The words felt too simple for the weight they carried. He moved toward the altar, setting the torch into a holder beside it. The chamber glowed faintly with reflected firelight, revealing more symbols carved into the stone, marks of unity and ruin intertwined. The legend says Bargon bound his power to the moon itself, creating a balance between flesh and spirit. But when he broke his vow, when he killed the goddess who gave him that power, the moon shattered. Half cursed, half blessed. Every Alpha since then has carried the fracture in their blood. Lyria's voice was barely a whisper. And the prophecy says I'm supposed to fix that? Or finish what he started, Cassian said. The silence that followed was thick, almost tangible. Lyria's gaze drifted upward toward the mural again. The woman of flame stared back, her painted eyes alive with sorrow and fury. Chains coiled around her wrists like serpents, yet in her gaze there was something else, defiance. Her breath trembled. Why does she look like she's waiting? Cassian stepped closer, his hand brushing the edge of the mural. Because she was never meant to walk alone. The weight of his words hung between them. Lyria felt her pulse flutter wildly. You think this is about us? He didn't answer right away. His eyes locked on hers, golden and unyielding. I think destiny repeats itself until someone has the courage to rewrite it. For a heartbeat, the chamber seemed to respond. The runes along the walls flickered, one by one, as though awakening to the sound of his voice. The ground trembled faintly beneath their feet. Lyria stumbled back. Cassian. But the altar flared. Silver light burst from the center, pouring like liquid fire across the floor. The statues seemed to breathe, their stone fur bristling, their eyes glowing faintly red. Cassian grabbed her wrist, pulling her away as the runes around them pulsed with life. You're triggering it. Her heart pounded in her chest. I didn't do anything. The air grew hot, burning with power she couldn't contain. Her mark seared against her skin, blinding white through her cloak. Images flashed in her mind, wolves bowing beneath a split moon, fire consuming a throne, chains melting away in blinding light. She gasped, falling to her knees. The power inside her screamed, wild and ancient, like 1,000 voices whispering her name. Cassian knelt beside her, gripping her shoulders. Lyria. Look at me. She tried, but the light was everywhere, filling her vision. It's too much. He held her tighter. Breathe. Let it pass through you. Don't fight it. Her chest constricted, but she forced herself to breathe, to focus on the warmth of his hands grounding her. Slowly, painfully, the light dimmed. The runes dulled to a soft glow. When the silence returned, Lyria was shaking. Cassian brushed a strand of hair from her face. You're stronger than you think. Tears slipped down her cheeks before she could stop them. If that's true, why does it hurt so much? He met her gaze, voice low. Because power always comes from pain. The flames around the altar guttered, then steadied. The room seemed to exhale. Lyria pushed herself up slowly, her knees unsteady. The mural behind her had changed. The silver flame that once engulfed the painted woman now spread outward, touching the shadowed king beside her. The chains between them were glowing, melting. Her lips parted. It's rewriting itself. Cassian looked at her, eyes wide. No, it's responding to you. The realization sank like a stone in her chest. The prophecy wasn't dormant, it was waiting. Lyria turned toward him, her voice trembling. If this is real, then my destiny isn't just mine. It's tied to yours. Cassian's expression darkened. Then the question becomes, will it save us, or end us? Neither spoke for a long moment. The air was heavy with the scent of ash and silver. Finally, Lyria whispered, if I'm meant to mend the broken moon, what happens when the moon refuses to be whole? Cassian's answer came like a vow. Then we break the heavens before we break you. The chamber fell silent again. Only the soft hum of awakened magic lingered, like the slow heartbeat of the prophecy itself, now alive within her veins. And as the torches flickered and the ancient runes glowed faintly against the darkness, the truth settled between them like a warning and a promise both. The myth had awakened. And destiny had chosen its flame. The crimson moon hung low, swollen and heavy, bleeding its eerie light across the Colosseum's broken walls. The air trembled with chanting, hundreds of shifters gathered beneath banners soaked in rain and fear. Silver mist curled through the air, carrying the metallic scent of blood and iron. Beneath it all, a pulse, a sound like the heartbeat of the earth itself, throbbed in the stone beneath their feet. Cassian stood at the center of the ritual circle, the faint glow of lunar runes crawling up his arms. His chest rose and fell with steady control, but his eyes, those burning, relentless eyes, betrayed the tension storming within. The Alpha King of Draven Keep was not a man easily shaken, yet tonight, his control hung by a thread. Lyria stood a few paces behind him, shrouded in a cloak too large for her slight frame. The moonlight caught on her hair, silver white, gleaming faintly like living flame. Her hands trembled as she traced the sigil carved into the stone floor, her voice soft as she whispered the final invocation. It wasn't power she felt then, it was fear. A fear that gnawed at her bones, whispering that every breath she took brought her closer to the prophecy she dreaded to fulfill. The ceremony was meant to bind their fates before the council, a ritual of allegiance between healer and alpha, between mortal and beast. But before the last word left her lips, a shattering roar split the night. Doors exploded inward. Dozens of armored shifters poured in, torches blazing and blades drawn. The insignia of the Imperial Council glinted on their chests, silver suns pierced by wolf fangs. The crowd erupted in confusion. Some ran. Others held. Cassian turned sharply, a snarl rumbling from his throat. "Stand down." But they didn't. The council's envoy stepped forward, Lord Hadrian, his eyes cold and merciless. "By decree of the High Moon, Cassian Draven, you are charged with treason. You harbor a witch, a flame-bearer of the cursed kind." Cassian's voice dropped, deep as thunder. "You dare call her that in my presence?" The envoy didn't flinch. He raised a hand, and silver chains shot from the guard's palms, wrapping Cassian's arms and chest, sizzling against his skin. He gritted his teeth, every muscle straining against the restraints. Smoke rose where iron met flesh. Lyria stepped forward instinctively. "Stop. You're hurting him." A guard seized her by the wrist, dragging her to her knees. The crowd murmured, some jeering, others silent with awe. "She has bewitched our Alpha," Hadrian declared, voice carrying through the storm. "Look at him, defending a cursed woman as if his will were not his own." Cassian's growl deepened, his eyes flashing gold. "Release her, or you'll wish you hadn't drawn breath tonight." And then came Valen. From the far side of the arena, the rival Alpha strode into view, towering, his black armor slick with rain, his gaze cold as carved obsidian. Valen the Black Fang. A name whispered in fear across the packs. He moved with the confidence of a predator that already knew its prey's heartbeat. "I challenge your claim, Draven," Valen's voice cut through the chaos. "You've grown weak, soft. The council needs a true alpha, not one ensnared by a witch's fire." The council murmured their approval. The challenge was ancient law, irrefutable. Cassian's lips curled into something between rage and resignation. He tore the chains from his body, sparks of silver burning into his skin. The wound didn't matter. The insult did. The ground cracked beneath his boots as he stepped into the circle. "Then bleed for your words." The storm answered them. The two alphas collided in a blur of motion and fury. Steel met claw. Rain hissed against burning skin. Every strike was a declaration, every roar a battle cry that echoed through centuries of blood and dominance. Valen's blade sliced across Cassian's ribs, but Cassian retaliated with a brutal strike to the jaw, sending the rival alpha crashing into the altar. The watching crowd erupted, half in horror, half in awe. Lyria could barely breathe. Every clash tore something inside her. She wanted to move, to heal, to stop the madness, but the memory of her flame consuming a man's soul kept her paralyzed. Her fingers itched with power she no longer trusted. Dallin laughed through bloodied teeth. Your heart's divided, Cassian. That's your weakness. Cassian growled, fangs bared. You wouldn't understand. You've never loved anything you couldn't own. Dallin lunged, silver dagger flashing, aimed for Cassian's throat. The blade connected. Cassian staggered, a roar ripping from his chest as blood poured down his collar. Lyria screamed his name. The sound shattered something deep inside her. Her palms burned, white-hot, painful, and before she realized it, light exploded from her skin. The silver flame roared to life, cascading through her veins like liquid fire. It burst from her body in waves, unstoppable, raw, divine. The air screamed. Guards were thrown backward, torches snuffed out, chains melted into molten streaks. The scent of burning silver filled the air. Every eye turned toward her as the power illuminated the Colosseum, blinding, magnificent, terrifying. Cassian, wounded and staggering, stared through the haze. Lyria, stop. But she couldn't. The flame was no longer hers to command, it was ancient will made flesh. The walls trembled, runes igniting with forgotten symbols. Statues cracked, their stone eyes glowing faintly, as if awakened by her power. Lyria fell to her knees, tears cutting through ash on her face. I didn't mean to. The envoy pointed a trembling finger. She carries the ancient fire. The word spread through the crowd like contagion. The flame-bearer, the cursed one. Cassian forced himself to stand, swaying but defiant. He stepped between her and the council, spreading his arms like a shield. His voice, hoarse but unyielding, carried over the terrified whispers. Touch her, and I'll end every one of you. But Lyria shook her head, voice breaking. Cassian, you don't understand, if I lose control again, I'll destroy everything. You can't protect me from this. Their eyes met, hers filled with agony, his burning with stubborn, reckless devotion. The air thickened with smoke and magic. The crowd retreated, uncertain whether to flee or kneel. Then Dallin rose again from the shattered altar, blood pouring from his wounds, face twisted in fury. You see? She's no savior, she's the ruin of our kind. Lyria's flame flickered wildly, responding to her heartbeat. The prophecy's words echoed in her mind, child of the flame will mend the broken moon, or shatter it forever. Cassian staggered toward her, his hand outstretched. Look at me. You control it, not the other way around. You're not a weapon, Lyria, you're the balance. Tears streamed down her face. Then why does it only burn? He reached her. His palm touched hers. The flame recoiled, just for a moment, as if recognizing something ancient in his touch. Silence fell. Then a pulse of energy rippled outward, extinguishing the torches, the storm, the noise. The world seemed to hold its breath. When the light faded, the Colosseum lay in ruin. The council had fled. Dallin knelt, defeated but alive. And Cassian, barely conscious, still held her hand. Lyria looked at him through the lingering smoke. I told you you'd regret saving me. Cassian's lips curved faintly, even as blood dripped from his chin. Then let me regret it a little longer. The moment lingered, fragile, sacred, terrifying. The moonlight bathed them both, silver against the blackened stone. And in that silence, beneath the ashes of what they'd both become, something undeniable was born, something neither prophecy nor curse could extinguish. A bond that defied fire, fate, and fear. But outside the ruins, the empire stirred. The council's messengers ran into the night, carrying a single message across the realm. The flame-bearer has awakened. The mountain swallowed them whole. Mist rolled through jagged peaks like breath from ancient gods, and the wind howled low, dragging the scent of rain, blood, and pine through the air. The world below, its chaos, its council, its hunters, was miles away now. Only the cold and the silence kept them company. Cassian moved with a predator's endurance, though every step left a faint trail of blood behind him. His strength had limits, even for an alpha. But he wouldn't show it. Not to her. Not when she looked at him with those eyes that seemed to carry both guilt and grace. Lyria followed close, her cloak torn, her hair tangled with ash. The silver flame that had nearly consumed her still hummed under her skin, faint but alive. Each heartbeat reminded her she could have killed him, that she almost did. When the storm broke, they found shelter inside a temple carved into the mountain spine. The place was ancient, its roof half collapsed, its walls covered in moss and forgotten prayers. Moonlight slipped through cracks in the stone, faintly illuminating the broken statues of wolf gods long abandoned. Cassian dropped heavily to the ground near the fire pit, his breath uneven. His skin gleamed with sweat, his chest marked by deep gashes from Balin's claws. The sight of him, torn and still defiant, made something twist in her chest. Without a word, Lyria knelt beside him. Her hands hovered over his wounds. "You shouldn't have fought for me." He huffed a quiet, pained laugh. "Shouldn't have? I'd like to see anyone else tell me that." Her lips parted to argue, but she didn't. The flame inside her stirred again, sensing his pain. It wasn't obedience, it was instinct, her gift reaching for him, wanting to mend what was broken. She whispered, "Hold still." Silver light bloomed between her palms, soft and trembling like a dying star. When it touched his skin, Cassian's body tensed, breath catching. The light sank into him, through muscle, through bone, and for a heartbeat, the air itself seemed to pulse with warmth. Lyria's eyes shimmered faintly. Every wound she healed left a trace of light along his skin, silver veins beneath the surface, glowing faintly like molten threads. She felt his heartbeat through her fingertips, steady and deep, pulling her closer to something she wasn't ready to name. Cassian's voice broke the silence, low and rough. "It doesn't hurt. It feels alive." She smiled faintly, not looking at him. "That's because it's not just healing. It's remembering. The body never forgets what pain taught it." His gaze lingered on her face, on the way her lashes trembled, on the faint light that made her seem otherworldly. "You fear your gift," he said quietly, "but I fear a world without it." Her hands froze. For a moment, the flame flickered, nearly dying. She lifted her gaze to his, uncertain, exposed. "You don't understand. My power doesn't just heal. It consumes. Every time I use it, I lose a piece of myself. And if I feel too much," she swallowed hard, "it burns stronger." Cassian tilted his head slightly, his tone softer now. "Emotion feeds it." She nodded. "When I love, it becomes unbearable." The fire crackled softly between them, the only sound in the temple. Outside, rain whispered against the stones. Cassian reached out slowly, his fingers brushing against hers. "Then love carefully," he said. "Not less." The touch was slight, almost nothing. But it made her heart falter, made her forget the cold, the fear, the prophecy that had chained her since birth. His hand was rough, calloused from battle, yet the way he held her felt deliberate, gentle, as if she might vanish if he wasn't careful. She looked up at him then. The flicker of flame reflected in his eyes, turning the amber gold of his irises into something that glowed with quiet hunger. Her pulse quickened, traitorously, and he noticed. Cassian's thumb brushed over her knuckles. "You're trembling." "I'm not used to being seen," she whispered. His voice dropped lower, gravel and warmth entwined. "You've been seen since the moment you walked into that square." Her breath hitched. The air between them changed, thicker, closer. Every second stretched thin. She wanted to move, to pull away, but couldn't. Not when his hand had found its way to her cheek, his thumb tracing the faint scar beneath her eye. She didn't flinch this time. The flame beneath her skin surged, responding to his nearness, glowing faintly through the veins in her wrist. Cassian saw it, and didn't back away. If anything, he leaned closer. "You shouldn't love me," she breathed, her voice barely there. He smiled, tired and sincere. Too late. For a heartbeat, everything stilled. The world outside, the rain, the cold, the fear, faded into nothing. There was only his warmth, his scent of smoke and pine, and the steady rhythm of his breath. Their foreheads nearly touched. The space between them throbbed with something fragile and wild. But then thunder cracked through the night, shaking the temple walls. The moment broke. Lyria flinched, pulling away, the light on her skin flickering out. She stood quickly, retreating to the edge of the fire's glow. Her heart raced, confusion tearing through her chest. Cassian exhaled, his jaw tight, his voice low. You always run when something real touches you. Her hands curled into fists. Because when I touch anything, it burns. He rose slowly, towering in the dim firelight, his presence filling the space. You think I'm afraid of being burned? She turned to face him, her eyes bright, defiant. You should be. You've seen what I am. Cassian took a step closer. I've seen what you're not. You're not a monster. You're not a curse. Then what am I? He stopped just in front of her, his voice dropping to a near whisper. Mine to believe in, even if you can't. The words hit her harder than any wound. They sank deep, into the part of her that still ached to belong. She wanted to tell him he was wrong, that trust had cost her everything, but the words wouldn't come. Instead, silence fell again, heavy and aching. He turned back toward the fire, his back to her. Trust me or leave, Lyria. But don't stand there pretending you don't feel it too. The flames cast a shadow long and dark against the walls. She stared at it for what felt like forever. The storm outside grew louder, but the sound inside her was worse, the echo of truth she couldn't deny. She took a slow breath, the air cold against her lips. If I stay, Cassian, you might lose everything. He didn't turn around. If you leave, I already have. The words lingered, fragile and final. She sat again by the fire, the distance between them small but filled with everything unsaid. Her flame pulsed faintly beneath her skin, calm for the first time in years. Maybe it wasn't peace, but it was something close. Cassian's eyes softened, the fight draining from his posture. You don't have to be perfect, he said quietly. You just have to stay. Lyria stared into the flames, her voice barely audible. Then teach me how. Outside, the storm began to fade. And for the first time in her life, she didn't feel hunted. She felt seen. The temple breathed with them, two broken souls stitched together by fear and fire, sitting in the ruins of gods, daring the night to take them. And as the firelight danced across the stone, the world beyond the mountain held its breath, because somewhere deep in the dark, destiny had begun to shift. The dawn broke red. The Empire's towers rose like spears against the bleeding horizon, and the banners of the wolf sigil fluttered weakly in the wind. The air smelled of iron and smoke, a city holding its breath before the storm. They had been gone for weeks, hunted through mountain and ruin, bound together by fire and trust. Now, they were returning to stop Valen's uprising, to end the bloodshed before it consumed what was left of Cassian's reign. But beneath that purpose, silence stretched between them, tight and brittle. Lyria rode beside him, hood drawn, her thoughts clawing at her heart. The memory of the temple fire, of his touch, of the quiet promise between them, it all felt like a fragile dream she wasn't sure she could believe in anymore. The closer they came to the capital, the heavier her chest became. The gates of the citadel loomed, dark stone and gold. The guards lowered their spears, bowing low as Cassian passed, their eyes flicking warily toward the cloaked figure behind him. They whispered her name as though it carried a curse. The cursed healer. The flame-bearer. Inside the council hall, the air was colder than any winter wind. Torches hissed along the walls, and the high table of alphas sat in silent judgment. Cassian walked forward with steady steps, his posture royal, unreadable. Lyria followed, her pulse a drumbeat of dread. Lucan, Cassian's most trusted advisor, waited near the dais, his silver armor polished to mirror brightness, his gaze sharp as a blade. He bowed slightly, lips curving into something that wasn't quite a smile. Your Majesty returns, he said softly. And with the relic herself. Lyria stiffened. Relic? Lucan's smile widened, slow and cruel. Did he not tell you? Did the noble Alpha King forget to mention why he scoured the wilderness to find you? Cassian's jaw tightened, but he said nothing. Lyria turned to him, confusion nodding into something darker. What is he talking about? Lucan stepped closer, voice dripping with false pity. The prophecy, my lady. Child of the flame, bound by moonlight, destined to awaken the sleeping blood of kings. The council believed it was myth. But the Alpha, his eyes glinted. He knew the truth. He knew it was you. He brought you back to finish what his ancestors started, to use your fire to cleanse the packs and crown himself eternal. The words struck like knives. Lyria looked at Cassian, searching his face, desperate for denial. But his silence hung heavy. His eyes, once a refuge, were walls now, hard, closed, unreachable. Her throat tightened. Tell me he's lying. Cassian didn't move. The hall seemed to shrink around them, every breath filled with the scent of betrayal. Lyria, he began softly, I needed you. The words broke her. You used me. Lucan's voice rose over the silence. She's no woman, she's a weapon. A danger to every bloodline. You saw what she did at the arena. The council erupted in murmurs, fear and awe colliding. Monster. Witch. Cursed flame. Lyria took a step back, her breath trembling. Her heart pounded against her ribs, each beat a betrayal. Every moment they'd shared, every touch, every whispered promise, it all burned now, ash in her chest. Cassian's voice cut through the noise. Enough. But even then, it was too late. Guards moved in, chains clinking. By decree of the council, one declared, the flame-bearer is to be contained and studied. For the safety of all packs. Lyria's eyes widened. Contained? She turned to Cassian again, voice breaking. Say something. Don't let them. But Cassian stayed silent, shoulders heavy, eyes downcast. That silence was worse than death. The guards reached for her, and something inside her snapped. Her power surged, silver light crawling across her skin like veins of lightning. The air trembled. The torches flickered, then died. A pulse rippled outward, soft at first, then violent. The marble beneath her feet cracked. The walls shuddered. Lucan stumbled back, shouting, she's losing control. Lyria's voice shook with fury and heartbreak. You wanted the flame? Now burn with it. Her scream tore through the hall, and silver fire erupted, pure, blinding, alive. It devoured everything it touched. Banners ignited, marble melted, and shadows screamed as the air turned to light. Cassian lunged forward, shielding her with his body, his voice raw. Lyria, stop. But she couldn't. The fire wasn't just her, it was her pain, her betrayal, her love turned to rage. Every memory of his touch, every lie he'd let live inside her chest, burned now in the open. Lucan drew his sword, face twisted with fear. Kill her before she takes us all. Cassian turned, snarling, claws extending, eyes glowing gold. You will not touch her. The council backed away, chaos breaking loose. The sound of shattering glass, screams, collapsing stone filled the air. Lyria's body trembled under the storm of light, her power too vast to contain. The silver fire rose higher, consuming the pillars, licking at the ceiling. Through the haze, Cassian's figure stood unyielding, facing her, eyes fierce, not with anger, but something else. He took one step forward, then another, until the light seared his skin. Lyria, he said, voice steady, even as flames bit into him. If I must burn, let it be beside you. Her breath caught. For the first time since the truth broke, her fire hesitated. It flickered, hesitant, lost. Why, she whispered, tears burning trails down her face. Why now? Cassian's voice was soft, trembling with something raw. Because I was wrong. I wanted your power to save my kingdom, but I didn't know it would cost you. He reached for her, his hand shaking. And I can't let them take you now. The flames began to twist around them, swirling like a storm drawn to his heartbeat. Lyria's body shook as she fought to control it, the power screaming through her veins. You can't save me. Not from this. Cassian's hand found her face, his touch steady despite the burns. Maybe not. But I can stand with you. The light dimmed, the fire collapsing inward until it surrounded them both in a circle of molten silver. The council stood frozen, too terrified to move, watching as the flame-bearer and the Alpha King became the center of their own ruin. The fire hissed, whispering like breath, and then, silence. Ash fell like snow. The great hall was gone, reduced to stone and ember. Cassian stood with her still, smoke curling from his armor, eyes locked on hers. There was no crown now, no prophecy, just two souls stripped bare by truth. Lyria's voice was a whisper, fragile and exhausted. You destroyed your throne. He shook his head slowly. No. I burned the lie that built it. For a moment, they stood in the ruins of everything they'd ever known, her flame dimming, his strength fading, but neither looked away. And in that silence, beneath the ashes of betrayal, something fierce and unspoken began to take root again. Not trust. Not forgiveness. But something deeper, an understanding carved from pain, a bond born in fire. Outside, the Empire trembled. Because when the flame-bearer rose again, the world would never be the same. The storm did not end when the battle began. It became her. The ruins of the council hall still smoldered behind her as Lyria strode across the marble courtyard, her hair alive with flickering ribbons of light. The moon hung low and blood-bright, painting the shattered empire in hues of ash and fire. Beneath her feet, the stones cracked, whispering her name like a forbidden prayer. She no longer trembled. The healer was gone. The exile burned away. Only the alpha flame remained. Cassian stood behind her, half in shadow, half in awe. His armor had been melted into his skin, the runes of his lineage glowed faintly beneath torn flesh. The mark of the moon alpha pulsed over his heart, responding to her fire as though her very presence commanded it to beat. Lyria, he rasped, voice torn raw, if you cross that threshold, there's no return. The gods will see you as a threat. She turned slowly, eyes like molten silver. They already do. The temple ahead loomed, its spires bent, its doors sealed by the sigils of the first wolves. Beyond them, the old gods slept, their whispers coiled through the ether, waiting for obedience. Waiting for the girl they had marked to kneel. But Lyria no longer knelt. She stepped into the temple's heart. Light folded around her, gold at first, then black, then neither. The air shimmered with the scent of blood and myrrh. Shadows moved within the flames, forming faces older than time. The gods of the moon, of the hunt, of the shifting curse, voices that had guided and deceived for centuries. Child of the flame, they murmured. The cycle binds all. Obey the will of the moon and restore balance. You are the sacrifice that seals the world. Her jaw tightened. No. The fire rippled across her skin, no longer pain, no longer burden. It was answer. I am not your offering. I am your ending. The gods recoiled. The temple trembled, and the marble beneath her feet split open, revealing a chasm of burning constellations. Out of it rose the echoes of the first wolves, those who had surrendered their freedom to serve divine will. They howled in grief, not rage. They had once been what she was now becoming, bound by power, broken by purpose. Cassian entered the chamber, dragging himself through the quake. His gaze met hers across the burning divide. Lyria, he shouted, reaching for her as the winds tore at his flesh. If you fight them alone, they'll consume you. She looked at him through the storm. Her voice softened, not weak, but human. Then come with me. Not as my master, not as my king. As my equal. Cassian's body convulsed, light splitting his veins. The ancient curse within him stirred, resisting her call. His wolf howled against the pull, against the fire that sought to unmake him and remake the world. But her eyes, those impossible, aching eyes, drew him forward. He took her hand. And the curse shattered. The explosion of energy split the heavens. The moon screamed, turning white-hot, the oceans below boiling into mist. Across the kingdoms, wolves collapsed, writhing as the ancient link between them and their gods snapped like a severed chain. For the first time in an age, they were free. Cassian's form broke and reformed, bones bending into something beyond mortal or beast. His fur turned silver-white, his eyes gold. He was the true moon alpha, the shape destiny had promised but never allowed. His roar silenced the heavens. Lyria's fire surged in answer. The two of them, flame and moonlight, merged into a single force. And Valen came to meet it. He emerged from the collapsing gate, his form cloaked in shadowed steel, a crown of bone upon his brow. Around him, the remnants of his army gathered, thousands of wolves forged from darkness, their fangs dripping with void. "You think you've broken the gods?" Valen spat, voice echoing like thunder. "You've only unchained chaos." Lyria lifted her hand. "Then let it unmake you first." The battlefield erupted. Flame met shadow. Moonlight split through the void. Every strike tore through time itself, the air screamed, the earth bled silver. Valen lunged at Cassian, claws meeting claws, the shockwave rippling across the burning sky. Lyria spun through the inferno, her power flaring with every heartbeat. The old voices still whispered, trying to reclaim her. "You were made to heal, not to destroy." She hissed through gritted teeth. "Then let this be healing, through fire." Valen's wolves surged toward her. She raised both hands, and the silver flame ignited, swallowing them whole, not in cruelty, but in release. The fire consumed their curse, returning them to dust and peace. Cassian faltered under Valen's strike, a blow laced with centuries of rage. Blood spilled down his chest. Lyria turned, catching the scent of it, her pulse trembling. Her fire wavered. Valen laughed. "See? Love is your weakness. Always has been." She looked down at Cassian, his eyes half-lidded, lips whispering her name. Her tears hit the ground and turned to steam. The flames around her dimmed, gathering inward, condensing into her chest like a collapsing star. When she spoke, her voice was calm, almost reverent. "You're wrong." She stepped forward. "Love is the only thing that burns without asking permission." Her fire exploded outward. Valen's armor melted. His shadow peeled away, revealing the man beneath, the wolf who once sought redemption and found only ruin. For a heartbeat, he saw her not as an enemy but as what he could never be, free. Then the flame consumed him, and silence fell. The temple collapsed. The moon bled silver tears. The war ended in the kind of quiet that feels holy. Lyria stood amid the ashes, the air shimmering around her like heat over sand. Cassian staggered to her, his body trembling from the weight of power newly earned. "It's over," he said, voice rough. She shook her head. "No. It's only beginning. The gods are gone, but the world will remember them through us." He reached out, brushing his thumb against her jaw. The touch was soft, reverent, terrified. "Then let them remember that we chose each other." Her fire dimmed to a soft glow. "You're not afraid anymore." "I was," he murmured, "until I realized fear was just love's shadow." The dawn broke. Light spilled through the ruins, turning everything golden new. The wolves across the empire lifted their heads to the sunrise, feeling, for the first time, no command in their veins, no leash in their souls. Only the wild, untamed rhythm of freedom. Lyria stepped forward, her bare feet touching the earth that had burned under her fury. The soil pulsed with warmth, not destruction. Every blade of grass, every whisper of wind recognized her not as conqueror but as balance restored. Cassian stood behind her, his hand finding hers again. Their bond was no longer prophecy, it was choice. The world had fought them. The gods had caged them. But love had rewritten the story. Lyria lifted her gaze to the horizon, to the place where night and dawn met, and whispered to the unseen stars. I am not your sacrifice. I am your witness. The fire within her settled, no longer raging, no longer needing to prove itself. It burned steady, endless, alive. And as the light spread across the mountains, the moon Alpha and the flame-bearer vanished into legend, two souls bound not by destiny, but by the will to defy it. Their names would fade into myth, their love whispered in every howl that echoed under the moon. But in the heart of the earth, where old gods once ruled, a single truth would remain. Even in fire, there can be mercy. Even in ruin, there can be love. And when the world tries to chain the wild will rise. The silence after war is never true silence. It hums, low and trembling, with everything unspoken. Ash drifts through the broken air like falling snow. The empire lies before her, temples shattered, towers bowed, streets glimmering with the silver remnants of divine fire. The scent of smoke and blood still clings to the world, but beneath it is something new. Life. The faintest heartbeat of renewal. Lyria stands at the center of it all, the wind threading through her hair, the glow of her power now dimmed to embers beneath her skin. She does not glow like a goddess anymore. She breathes like a woman who has seen too much, given too much, and still has more to lose. Cassian steps closer. His hand, calloused, scarred, trembling with the aftermath of battle, finds hers. His touch grounds her, but it also burns. The link between them thrums with dangerous beauty. They are no longer prophecy's pawns, no longer chained to gods or curses. Yet the bond that binds them is not safe. It never was. Above them, the moon flickers like a wounded eye. The once perfect sphere now bears a jagged fracture, faint but spreading, a scar across heaven's face. And within Lyria's mind, the last verse of the prophecy whispers again, soft as breath and cruel as fate. The flame that heals may one day consume the moon. Her throat tightens. She looks at Cassian and sees the truth reflected in his gaze, he feels it too. The pull of inevitability. The warning that even in victory, there can be ruin waiting in the quiet. He says nothing. He doesn't have to. His silence is a confession, heavy as any vow. Her heart trembles. Tell me, she whispers. If this flame, if I lose control again, if the gods were right, and I'm meant to burn what I love most, would you still stand beside me? Cassian's jaw tenses. He lifts her hand to his lips and presses a kiss against her knuckles, slow and reverent, as though trying to memorize the warmth before it fades. I already chose you, he murmurs. Even if the world ends in your fire. The words pierce deeper than any blade. They are promise and curse, devotion and surrender all in one. The people kneel across the ruins, their heads bowed, not in worship, but in fear disguised as awe. The silver flame reborn. The moon Alpha beside her. To them, she is salvation wrapped in danger, the one who broke their gods and freed their chains. But freedom always demands a cost. Lyria feels their eyes on her. Feels the tremor of belief rising from the ashes. And she wonders, how long before that belief turns to dread? How long before they whisper her name not as savior, but as the next disaster? Her chest aches with the weight of it. She steps forward, her voice carrying across the wind, neither command nor plea, just truth. This world was built on obedience, she says, gaze sweeping over the kneeling crowd. You bowed to gods, to kings, to fear itself. I have burned all of them. But I cannot free you from what you still choose to worship. The fire in her veins stirs again, faint, dangerous, alive. The people do not rise. They stay bowed, trembling, unable to look at her light. And in that moment, Lyria understands the prophecy's cruelty. It was never about destruction. It was about choice. The flame that heals may one day consume the moon, because light, once unleashed, cannot be controlled. It only obeys its nature. Cassian watches her, silent, wary, the reflection of fire dancing in his golden eyes. Lyria, he says softly, you don't have to carry this alone. She turns to him, her lips trembling between sorrow and something like defiance. Then why does it feel like I always will? He steps closer. His hand cups her face, thumb tracing the faint ember glow beneath her skin. Because you're the only one strong enough to bear it. Her eyes close. For a breath, she lets herself lean into him, forehead against his chest, heartbeat against heartbeat. But even that comfort feels fragile. Every pulse between them is a spark. Every breath risks setting the world aflame again. The sky rumbles above, a shudder of distant thunder. The moon's fracture widens, spilling a faint shimmer of silver dust across the dawn. Lyria opens her eyes. The light of it paints Cassian's face in ghostly glow. He looks both mortal and divine, both her solace and her undoing. Cassian, she whispers. What if they're right? What if I am not meant to rule or to heal, but to end everything? He shakes his head. You were never meant to be anything but yourself. Her throat tightens around unshed tears. And if myself is destruction? He smiles faintly, a quiet sadness behind it. Then let the world rebuild from your ashes. Just promise me one thing, don't let them turn you into their fear. She stares at him, the ache between them unbearable. And if I already am? He doesn't answer. Instead, he draws her closer, his forehead resting against hers, the air between them trembling with unspoken words. Around them, the wind stirs the embers into small spirals of light. The Empire holds its breath. And in that fragile pause between peace and prophecy, a question forms, one that neither of them can escape. Would you have chosen her, or feared her too? Would you have reached for her hand knowing it burned, or turned away to save yourself? Is she salvation, or a curse reborn? The wind howls across the mountains, carrying no answer, only the echo of her name. The silver flame. The woman who defied gods, loved her enemy, and broke destiny itself. But stories like hers do not end, they linger, asking, haunting, daring those who listen to choose. If this story lit something inside you, stay with us. Subscribe to Sophie's Romance Collections, where every tale burns, heals, and leaves a mark that never fades. Because somewhere in every heart, there's a flame waiting to rise. The last ember flickers in her palm as the world fades to silence. And her whisper, soft but eternal, follows the dark. The fire was never meant to destroy. It was meant to remember. The silence does not last. It never does. Ash drifts through the hollow air like the world exhaling after a scream. The fire has dimmed to smolder, the wind carries only whispers now, low, uncertain, trembling. The Empire kneels beneath a wounded dawn, its light fractured, unsure whether it has survived or merely paused its dying. Lyria stands at the heart of the ruin. The silver embers that once wrapped her skin now fade into faint scars, glowing like ghost veins beneath her flesh. Every breath burns. Every heartbeat feels borrowed. Yet she remains upright, unmoving, her gaze fixed on the bleeding horizon. Cassian moves beside her, his hand still reaching for hers. He is steady, though his chest rises with exhaustion, his body marked by the battle's toll. He should look victorious, but there is no triumph here, only the heavy weight of what survival costs. Lyria, he murmurs, voice rough, it's over. She doesn't answer. Her eyes track the faint line where sky meets the broken palace towers, where the moon's fractured edge still hangs above the world like a wound that refuses to close. Her silence stretches long enough to become an ache between them. Then she exhales, slow and trembling. No. It isn't. Her words fall like stones into still water, rippling through the quiet. Cassian turns fully to face her. What do you mean? She lifts her chin, eyes glinting with something half-seen, fear or knowing. Maybe both. The prophecy never spoke of victory, she says. It spoke of awakening. Flames don't end, they spread. Before he can answer, the wind shifts. It comes colder, sharper, carrying a scent neither of them recognize, metal, rain, and something faintly alive, something that hums against the skin like a heartbeat beneath the earth. The torches still burning nearby gutter in unison, their light shrinking to thin blue threads. The ashes on the ground begin to stir, swirling slowly around Lyria's feet as if drawn by some unseen pull. Cassian's instincts flare. He steps forward, protective, scanning the horizon. The wolves in the distance, those who survived, lift their heads, ears twitching towards something approaching beyond sight. And then it happens. A voice drifts through the air, soft at first, then rising, curling through the smoke like a melody from the grave. She is not the only one who bears the flame. The sound freezes Lyria where she stands. It is old. Older than gods, older than prophecy. It carries the weight of centuries, a voice that does not echo from the sky or earth, but from between them. Cassian's claws extend without thought. "Who's there?" he demands, his voice carrying the low growl of an alpha on edge. No answer, only the whisper of movement. Shadows gather along the horizon, thick and fluid, coiling into the shape of something vast and unseen. The moon's fractured light reflects off it in broken pieces, like scales beneath water. Lyria feels her pulse stutter. The fire within her chest flickers, not with power, but with warning. A tremor runs through her bones, ancient recognition clawing up her spine. She knows that voice. Not the words, but the echo of it, the way it twists through her soul like smoke through flame. She's heard it in dreams she could never remember. Cassian senses her trembling. "Lyria, what is it?" Her lips part, barely forming the truth. "It's another." And then the ground shudders. A distant roar splits the heavens, rolling across the mountains like thunder cracking through eternity. The sky darkens again, clouds spiraling inward as if something enormous breathes just beyond them. Every wolf in the valley drops to its knees, howling low and fearful. Cassian's eyes snap upward, he feels it too. The bond of the pack quivers, as though another alpha's power has entered the world, ancient and unbound. Lightning tears across the sky, not gold, not white, but silver, pure and searing. The light strikes the farthest ridge, igniting the peaks for a heartbeat before darkness swallows them again. Cassian grips Lyria's arm. "We ended it. There shouldn't be another." Her gaze drifts toward the distant glow still pulsing on the horizon. "The gods don't create once," she whispers. "They test. Again and again." The air hums with pressure, the taste of ozone sharp on the tongue. From the heart of the storm, something moves, massive, unseen, yet the shape of it commands reverence and dread alike. Cassian steps in front of her. "We face it together," he says. But she doesn't move. Her eyes burn faintly again, silver light blooming along her veins. "No," she murmurs. "This isn't meant for both of us." "Don't you dare," he starts, but the rest is lost in another roar, closer this time, deafening, alive. The mountains themselves seem to bend beneath the sound. The light in the distance flares once more, shaping into the faint outline of something half wolf, half fire, its wings carved from molten smoke. The reflection of it dances in her eyes, another like her. Another flame-bearer. The prophecy was never singular. Cassian sees it too now, the realization slicing through him like cold steel. "How many?" he asks, voice low. Lyria's answer is a whisper that tastes like sorrow. "As many as the gods need to keep their balance." The shadows pulse again, the figure dissolving into the storm until nothing remains but the trembling light of the fractured moon. Lyria turns back to him, her expression unreadable, part fear, part resolve. "This isn't over," she says quietly. "The flame has only begun to wake." Cassian searches her face, the truth in her eyes cutting deeper than prophecy ever could. "Then we stand ready," he says. "Whatever comes." But deep within him, even as he says it, a chill lingers. He knows what she will not say aloud. Some battles are not fought to be won. Some are fought simply to keep the dark from swallowing what little light remains. The wind dies. The last ember at Lyria's feet fades. For a heartbeat, everything stills, sky, earth, breath. Then, far beyond the mountains, a single howl rises. Low. Echoing. Not Cassian's. Not hers. Something new. Something ancient. The sound ripples through the broken land like a promise. And the fire inside her answers. The moon flares once more, cracked, luminous, watching. The screen fades to black. You think it ended here, but the gods never end what they begin. Stay with Sophie's Romance Collections. The next story waits in the smoke, because every flame has a twin, and every ending is only the beginning.